Today on One Slot, Chinese lending to the African continent has dropped to the lowest in nearly 2 decades, resulting from Beijing's shift away from a decades-long big-ticket infrastructure spree on the continent. Now, this is coming as a result of several African nations struggling with debt crisis and China's own economy facing headwinds. The reason for this latest decline and redirection? We're about to find out. Also, the mineral-rich continent Africa is faced with smuggling challenges, and the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, has asked the UN to weigh in, categorically stating that African nations will no longer accept a situation in which human rights advocacy is used by wealthy and powerful nations to stop developing economies from dealing decisively with malign actors who illicitly siphon and smuggle out the continent's vast mineral resources while smuggling in Western-made weapons, which of course enrich the wealthiest economies in the world at the parasitic expense of African stability and wealth creation. We'll also take a look at the reason for this call to action and of course the United Nations response to the president's request. Welcome to the program with me, Blessings Mosugu. Welcome once again to One Slot. Africa will no longer permit the smuggling of mineral resources and illegal weapons. Now, that was the word of President Bola Tinubu. According to the president, he made the statement at the 78th United Nations General Assembly in New York, while admonishing the United Nations to back the African continent in light of a series of military coups which have occurred in the West African sub-region in the past few months and years, and of course the growing concern about smuggling of mineral resources. Now, this speech has since been a headline story for most newspapers across the continent, as it is indeed a pressing issue. We will be looking into this with our guests, of course. Joining me to discuss this is David Matsanga, African Affairs Analyst in London. Thank you so much, David, for joining us.
Thank you very much, News Central, for inviting me to this show.
It's a pleasure.
Good evening, the viewers across the world and in the African continent. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you join us, Dr. Matsanga. Now, Dr. Matsanga, going straight to the conversation, what would you make of President Bola Tinubu's speech to the United Nations?
That speech was timely. It was timely in the sense that time has come for Africa to stand up and say exactly what they want and what they don't want. Most of the time, for the last 63 to 66 years, since the first independence of the state of Ghana, we have never said we want this and stick to that. We always say and forget about what we want. At times we muddle ourselves. At times we are confused. This speech was welcome to tell people that time has come. Don't come for our minerals. Don't smuggle our minerals. Don't bring us guns to fight. Then as we fight, you are taking the minerals out of Africa. That was a timeless speech.
So do you think that as we have been able to reiterate that, as the president was able to speak on behalf of everyone, especially for the African nation, do you think we're successfully able to pass the message once again that Africa is not a pushover continent?
First of all, Africa would be united. If it was united as a single unit, that would be very good. But in Africa, we speak in 55 tongues. Each country has its own strategy. Each country has its own economy. Each country has its own foreign policy. So we don't have a single foreign policy that determines what we should do in Africa and not to do, how to defend Africa, how do we stop Africa from being siphoned off resources, taking out our minerals. We speak in 55 tongues of the 55 member states. Some African countries even undermine their fellow African states. Why? Because African Union has not been in the last 8 years, has not functioned in the way that we anticipated. It has not done the great job of uniting Africa, speaking for Africa. There would be no need of African heads of state to go to China, for example, for a summit. there would be no need, because if we had one foreign policy, if we had one agenda of in developing our continent, that is, we go and put the program to the Chinese, say, how much are you lending us? And we are 55. Each of us will take this much to build this time roads. There would be no siphoning of resources from this continent, but we are not united. AU has let us down.
Okay. Now, Dr. Matsanga, President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria has asked the United Nations to back Africa, and that's because terror financing and armed struggling has gone on for a long time. Now, the United Nations has agreed to support the African continent, but how do they want to achieve that? What input are we expecting from the United Nations?
United Nations always comes in too late, my sister, and does very little. If we are waiting for United Nations as Africans, President Tinubu must know that if we wait for United Nations, we might wait when all of us are dead, because it doesn't help us. It comes in too late, it does too little, and it only supports. You have seen the way United Nations sings about Ukraine, but you can't see how United Nations singing about Sahel region, how United Nations is telling us how to combat Boko Haram, how to combat Al-Shabaab, how to combat all these terror groups, gangs that have come to gang on the African continent, to kill our people, to create conflicts. United Nations has not put up its own strategy of how to help Africa to get out of the quagmire. But when you hear of a war in Europe, if you hear a war in Ukraine, you have seen United Nations even marshalling, taking sides against Russia, marshalling people to support Russia, to support Ukraine against Russia. These are some of the things that we must put before the United Nations. There is no United Nations unless Africa has a center in the table, on the table, with not on the menu. You see, the problem with Africa is that we have been on the menu. We have been eaten. We are being eaten every time, but we don't eat. We don't eat. We are eaten by the Western countries. We are eaten by America. They come by the French. They come and siphon our resources. They bring conflicts. They eat us. But we have not also eaten on the same menu. We don't sit on the same table as equal partners. We sit on the same table as people going to be eaten. So time has come for Africa, and I support on this one. There are a few things that we disagree with President Tinubu, but on this one, I support him fully on how Africa must engage, how Africa must start telling people off that enough is enough. But first of all, let's begin ourselves by creating a solidified stand, a stand of unity, of purpose, to make sure that we remove wars on our continent.
Dr. Matsanga, I do like how you phrased it. Instead of having a seat at the table to eat, we're being eating. But one would ask, how do we get ourselves out of that situation? How do we establish that we're not one to be eaten, we're one to eat, as a member of, as someone who is validly supposed to be on that table? Some people would say that the president's speech is a step in the right direction. Would you agree with that?
It is in the right direction, but we must now clean AU. We must clean African Union. Let President Tinubu listen to me. I am tomorrow passing a censor motion for the first time in the history of African Union. I'm tabling, and you receive a blessing, you receive your copy, to all heads of state to censor the Secretary General, the chairperson of African Union, Dr. Mohamed Faki from Chad. For the last 7 years, he has been a disgrace to this organization. He has not functioned as a Secretary General. He has functioned as if he is the president of Africa. And he has taken the space of the president. There is a lot of corruption. There is no court working. We have paid a lot of money. Can you imagine 7 judges sitting in Arusha, waiting for cases to come, earning salary, huge salary with allowances and the staff of a whole African Court of Justice, but they have no cases. because the AU chairperson has not gone out to persuade African countries to ratify this court. All the protocols of African Union, my sister, none of them have moved the court away. Show me one. Malabo, Maputo, Abuja Protocol, Kampala Protocol of ICC, leaving ICC. What happened? We ended halfway. The African Free Trade, the Kigali Protocol, where are we? Out of 55 countries, how many have signed? The chairperson is busy collecting salaries, a salary every afternoon, every morning, allowances, traveling, wearing suits across Africa. But Africa is bleeding. Conflict. Tell us where are our passports? Where are our visa free? They told us we shall have a visa free Africa with one passport. That project took money. They took it. We don't know where it is. They told us that there will be no guns by 2020. The guns are still even increasing. There are conflicts on the continent, blessing. Look at Sudan. Who is talking about Sudan? Nobody. Nobody except Dr. Matsanga, who is talking all the time on Twitter that Sudan is going down. Who's talking about Libya? Libya has been cut into two. So Tinubu's speech was timely, that time has come for Africa to stand up, to be counted and to be told, to tell the people that enough is enough. You have divided us too much. We want ourselves to stand as people, start collecting our own resources, our own money, put our own money together. We are able. If each country produces $1 million, we can create a factory that can produce our own rings. You can't imagine that we are the owners of diamond, but diamonds are taken to Dubai. Then we wear rings like this. We buy them from Dubai, from outside. They bring them to sell the rings of our own product. So time has come. President Tinubu's call was timely, but how long and how far it can go is what I don't know.
Right. Dr. Matsanga, now you did talk about a censure motion against Musa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the African Union. Now, if we're to go by the assertion that you have mentioned that he hasn't been efficient in his duties, what do you hope that this censure motion would achieve?
Remove him. We're going to remove him. I have 39 heads of state, and let him hear me today, including Nigeria will support him. 39 heads of state have been canvassing across the world. At my age, blessing, I cannot leave you, the younger generation, with nothing. I'm going toward sunset. What do I leave you with? Nothing. Nothing. What will I tell God? What will I tell Nyerere? What will I tell Kaunda? What will I tell Obote? What will I tell Baba Tafat Balewa? What will I tell Benebera, Nasa, Sekuture, Amir Kabura? What will I tell them when I find them there? That I left an African Union, younger ladies who go for employment in African Union are asked for sex first. What type of organization is this on African continent? How can we have an organization which has got corrupt tendencies of that nature? Women are molested, sexual harassment, corruption, nepotism. They speak one language. From the top up to the top is French. You can't go to that organization and work. So Mr. Tinubu should work out clean house African Union first. It can't work. They speak one language. When you are an English speaker, you have a problem in the African Union today. The Secretary General is from the French-speaking country. The deputy is from the French-speaking country. The head of legal department is a French-speaking country who has no papers. How can you employ somebody? You are the chairperson of the African Union. You employ a person who has no law degree to be the legal advisor of the whole African head of state. Look at the mess we have gone in. Look at Libya. Look at DRC. Look at the military coups coming. Who is educating these people? Where is the other trigger mechanism, my sister? Where is it? The African Union is dead, is walking a corpse. Therefore, we must censor this man under Article 41, rules of procedure. Rules of procedure. We must remove him before his term ends. He goes with a record that he was removed because of corruption. Where is the money that we paid for the court? Where is it? Where is it? All the elections in Africa are bungled. Are bungled. You tell me, I'll tell you why. They are bungled because AU comes and does not do a good job. We have a problem. They have a template where they write free and fair. No, we need a democratic dispensation. We need to teach people. We are not copying the British. We are not copying the Americans. We are our own. If this guy cannot function, get out. And we get somebody who can protect our minerals. But he has taken part in looting of our minerals. He has taken part in even eliminating some people. The president of Chad died. Blessing, let me tell you. This man was seen with the rebels, announcing, the rebels on the same platform, announcing that we killed General Idris Deby. How do you kill a person in cold blood? Your own president, and you don't reprimand those rebels. You take them to Doha to come to plan other attacks. Why have we divided Libya, for example? Openly, someone is stealing the oil of Libya. Someone is degrading the environmental catastrophe that you see up coming. The Mediterranean Sea is coming back, warming, because people are drilling oil. They are taking oil in the tankers, stealing it at night, because Libya is in chaos. Blessing, there is a problem. And that censor motion is coming. I will give you a copy tomorrow in the morning. It is coming. All heads of state.
That will be very well appreciated, Dr. Matsanga. I mean, Dr. Matsanga, seeing the passion with which you speak of Africa and the well-being, not many people are as invested in the growth of a continent as you are. And same can be said about the president of Nigeria, Tinubu, especially reflecting through that speech that he gave. Now, a lot of people would say that they're impressed with the fact that he did not just concern himself with what is happening in Nigeria, but he went, looking at it from a vantage point. He spoke about the African concerns. But some of the people would say that he did that because he is the chairman of the ECOWAS. So do you think that he's invested in Africa as the chairman of the ECOWAS, or he's just a good leader that understands that the problem of Africa is general?
First of all, leadership is given by God. He has got the leadership. I don't want to go into your internal dynamics as Nigerians. You have your problems. The case is still in court, and things are going on. And I've told you that I disagree with President Tinubu on many things, but on this one, I have agreed with him. And for him, for us to reach a level of that nature, Nigeria as the leading country in Africa, with a population of 220 million people, that must wake up and organize us. Let them get organized and organize the rest of Africa. The population in Nigeria can buy my food, the food from my country, Uganda. We grow very good food. Why do we import food when some of the food in Uganda is going to rot? Yet we can feed people in West Africa. We must start thinking now other than thinking tomorrow, because let's begin at home. There are people, of course, who will underestimate his speech and tell him these are problems. But look at the problems that you have yourselves. The Boko Haram has been there for almost 10 years. It has killed almost everybody, scared so many people in north of Nigeria. His right to cry out. He needs help, and Africa needs help. But what the UN does is because they take us second-class citizens. They don't take us serious. They don't put up an alarm like Ukraine. They should have put up an alarm like in Ukraine that come and help us. Things are not very good. Why are they not doing so? Africa needs to be helped, one, in terms of fighting insurgents. We have a war in Somalia near me, near my country, Kenya and Uganda. We have Ugandan troops there who have been there since 1991. We have been defending, we have been dying, defending that country from going to a pariah state completely, so that we don't have Islamic State being created around this enclave of the Great Lakes region. Now, if we don't stand up and start as AU, if we don't have a better African Union, a better AU, an AU that can convince the world that leadership quality is this. We have a man who is almost a fifth because all the money is not accounted for. Why is the court not working? Out of 30 countries that signed the court blessing, only 8 countries have signed for this African Court of Justice. Nigeria has not signed. My own country has not signed. What are they fearing? Then why did we create the court? That's why you see everybody in Africa is running to International Criminal Court, which is a very dangerous court, a court by America, sponsored, paid, logistically equipped by America to molest everybody, anybody who does not like or talk about, who talks wrong, anything against America is brought to this court. If you annoy them, they put a warrant of arrest like they did to Putin. Look at what they have done. Was there any need? Why do you arrest Putin and then leave the president of Ukraine, who also is using missiles to kill Russians? Take both of them. Take both of them to court. The judges say, no, you are the one who was the aggressor. You are the best one. Go home. Why do you issue a warrant of arrest to one person? The whole Security Council mechanism, my sister, needs to be dismantled, and the new mechanisms of the International United Nations Security Council brought to light. That is when Africa can have a seat at that place and make a decision for 1.4 billion people.
All right, very valid points there, Dr. Matsanga. Thank you so much for that. Now, speaking of smuggling, the president also touched on the issue of smuggling when he said that, the country will no longer allow, or the continent itself will no longer be a transit point for smuggling. Africa has, for the longest time, been a point for drug smuggling, and that has incited corruption and provoked violence. How did we get here?
We got here because those routes have been there for smuggling for a long time. You remember the triangle trade from Africa, from Europe, West Africa to Haiti. Look at Haiti today. And some people are talking about Haiti. I'm going to host a space within the next 2 hours why Haiti needs peace. People don't know the history of Haiti. Haiti was a cooling point for drug barons. All drugs that come all from Africa, South America, Caribbean, America itself. They use Haiti as a landing point, a cooling point. So the drug barons have manifested themselves into gangsters. They are now real lords with guns. They have used the money from the drugs to buy guns, sophisticated equipment. Where do they buy them? From France. Where do they buy them? From United States, across in Florida, in those areas. They pick the guns from there. They pick the money from there. So now, when you come to Haiti, you have a problem. The smuggling routes have been there in Africa. How do we close them? We close them by having unity of purpose. If we are united in Uganda, we shall know what is happening in DRC Congo. We shall know what is happening in Nigeria. We shall know what is happening in Ghana. I am sure there are people in Ghana who don't know some districts of Nigeria. They don't know. If you tell them what is this Anambra state, he said Anambra state is on planet Moon. It's on the moon. No, it's something. We have a problem today. And that is the problem. Africa needs a lot of sitting down. And I'm suggesting, that's why I want to move on this man, the Secretary General of African Union, with a censor motion, to censor him on 22 accounts where he has failed. We should have educated people. We don't have even a language. We speak French. I'm speaking English. We have Swahili. I don't know whether, Blessing, you know one word in Swahili, which was an African language, which would unite us. But we are still speaking languages of Portuguese. You find a Portuguese in Angola. I go to Angola all the time. He said, bragado. What is bragado? I don't know. You know? So we are divided. Every time we want to unite, Blessing, we are disunited. The more we unite, the more we disunite.
Right. I do get your point, Dr. Matsanga. But finally, I would like to ask, and this is a very tricky one. Now, a lot of times, African countries ask for international help or from the international bodies, the AU, the UN, and all of that. But a lot of times, we ask for help, but we are resistant when they try to help. How can international bodies interfere when it's time to help these African countries?
Why do we even, first of all, ask for help? We have plenty of our help here if we were united. The key factor here, Blessing, is unity. If we were united, Nigeria has a problem. Ugandan troops are battle-hardened. We should have sent troops to tackle those Boko Haram who are killing you people, who are kidnapping your children, your younger girls. We might not find women in Nigeria anymore. These people are taking our girls. We should have sent troops in Nigeria. We should have educated other people if we were united. But Africa, we are not. How can we be, that's why the West comes in and gives. When we want to unite, countries like France come in and say, no, don't try, sponsor a coup. Sponsor, you know what has been happening? The African Union, for example, Blessing, which is Pan-African Parliament, was one of the bodies that was uniting Africa of late. Have you heard the problems that are there? You have been reading them here. You know, someone wants to make a coup sponsored by the French to overthrow an English-speaking president who is still serving. So we are not united at all. And the more we want to unite, the more the French and the other countries come in to divide us. Because if we were united, they won't have what they want. They want to take those minerals. The more we are disunited, the more conflicts are on our region, on our continent, the more they take the minerals every time.
Right. African Affairs Analyst Dr. David Matsanga, it's been a pleasure having you on this show discuss this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Blessing. And it is a great pleasure for me to have seen you today live.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, you're still watching One Slot, and when we come back, we have another story to discuss. Do stay with us.